In this episode, Officer Carter and Officer Holland recount a shooting they were involved in while on a SWAT call-out. The suspect shot 2 SWAT team members, and the SWAT team returned fire, killing the suspect. Team member Davis was released from the hospital and returned to duty. Team member Holtry was paralyzed and medically retired.
Just reach Meridian and
Team fire now.
Be Meridian. If there's still active shooting, we'll take the Bearcat, head that way.
39.
Upper Sioux, going to be Locust Grove and U-Stick, and they just put out a shot fire, just so you know, on the route.
This is a 1032 podcast where we interview experts in firearms and training with law enforcement, military, and competitive shooting backgrounds. All right, man, I got Denny, my buddy Denny back here again, and Brian, and we're going to be talking about a shooting that they were involved in on the SWAT team a few years ago. So what have you been up to, Brian?
Back on patrol. Got 9 months before I retire, so
Yeah.
yep, going out with we do one more stint on we have a bar team, kind of a slash gang team, so I'll be working with that this summer.
So what are you going to do when you retire?
Keeping my options open. I'm talking to a company right now. Might start working for them here soon. They're going to try me out at some show, sheriff, some chief show or something like that, on some products, and then otherwise I might just try to market my gang expert stuff that I have. And
So you want to stay in the industries?
I don't want to cop anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, but you don't want to be a cop, but you like
No,
like
but-
a lot of us like to be around it still, right? By
Well,
teaching
I-
and things like that.
I just got all this gang experience that I could probably continue to use and help out. So if I can, cool. If not, I can pour beers and whiskey like anybody else. So. I already got an offer on that.
You can't drink them though. You gotta sell them.
Well, that ain't part of the deal.
Funny. All right. Now, Danny was on here my first show, so he's back again. It seems like when we talk about trouble, his name comes up a lot. What's up with that?
I don't know. When I was a kid, my nickname was Trouble. That's kind of funny that you say it like that. So I don't know where that came from.
All right, Brian, tell us a little bit about you, what your background is.
Originally from Southern California.
Man, we sure hear that a lot around here.
I know. I didn't know anything about Idaho. They offered me a scholarship at Idaho State University. I took it, played ball there, and then got a degree in social work, and then hated Pocatello. So decided I was gonna go back home. Friends were dying. It was bad. So no reason to get back to Southern Cal. Family just said try and stay up this way. So I applied some other places and got a job in Canyon County as a juvenile PO. Did that for 3 years. Then went to the state, worked state PO for 5, and then switched over to Boise PD. Been there almost 21 years. My specialty's been gang work, so I've been working gangs for.
But you're a big
27.
tactics guy too, right?
Yeah. My 2 goals were SWAT team and gang unit, so I was able to make that happen. And me and Denny been working together for 20 years or more. Matter of fact, when I was at PMP, I think we did some stuff while you were on the downtown team.
That's correct.
Yeah. So known him for a long time and worked under him. He was my team lead on the SWAT team. Did a bunch of raids together. Tore it up.
Yeah, Denny's led a lot of stuff in the last during his career, but it's been great being able to work with you guys on occasion. Our team and your team got to work together, train together, learn from Danny Carter, the master.
I don't know about that, but yeah, working together with the county was always great. That was our fallback team, and learned a lot from training with those guys, and good men on their SWAT team, and we could always count on them for help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's always been good working with you guys. Let's get into the incident we're going to talk about. It was, that day. I'll just tell you what occurred for me. My wife at the time, or my current wife, my wife was riding with me.
Remix.
I was like, apparently you've been serving some notices we haven't found out about it all.
Remix.
Well, my current wife, she was doing her first ride along that day. First call of the day, we went up Bogus Basin for a vandalism report. There was a guy that parked his truck, was off hiking, come back, and somebody smashed his windshield in. So we took that report, and we leave, and we're coming back down Bogus Basin, you know, the windy road, and kind of, you know, trying to show off a little bit. My wife, and going, yeah, I wish I could get you out on the EVOC course, you know, it's really curvy, just like this road, and we're coming down, and then here Sergeant Santucci at the time says, hey, Boise's got 2 officers down. You guys, you need to get there now. And of course, you know how MDTs are, and especially you get up in the mountains area, MDT's not working. I'm like, hey, I don't even know where I'm going. I need an address. I said it a few times. Hey, I need an address. And I think Sheriff Clifford come on, who was a sergeant at the time, and says, hey, this is the address. My wife had to put it into her phone, and she was navigating for me.
Wow.
As we're coming down Bogus Basin. We get into downtown, you know, she's telling me, okay, you're going to turn left here, you're going to turn right here. I'm on the brakes, on the gas, on the brakes, on the gas. Finally get to your guys' location, slam it in park, you know, grab my gear, and smoke's coming off of the brakes, you know. I'm sure you guys have done that many times, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, I jump out and grab my gear. One of the first people I see was Denny. And I could just tell by the look on his face that things were not good. So,
Yep.
you want to give a little background what occurred that day?
Denny's got
Why?
more of the planning. I mean,
Well, I can.
Why you guys were even there?
I mean, I would start off. You know, I don't know. It was kind of interesting. It was November 11th, 2016, which was Veterans Day. So, for the organization I work for, the police department, we have this thing called holiday pay. And so if you, depending on what assignment you're in, they don't want to pay you the holiday pay. So they have you on limited duty, so you're off. So I was in the training unit at the time, and so I was a non-essential personnel. And so only patrol and the essential personnel work on the holidays due to the contract and the cost and those kinds of things. So, you know, on that day, I remember my wife was off. She was a school teacher. And so she was doing her thing, running some errands. I was doing my thing, running some errands. And I was getting a sandwich at a deli when we got the call to respond out, reference an individual that we had been looking for, that the department had been looking for. I'm not going to say his name. I don't know if B's going to say his name, but I don't give him any notoriety. But he was wanted for shooting 2 people and shooting at another person. He paralyzed a person, shot another person, and then tried to shoot and kill his sister when he was on parole and should have been in prison.
And that happened in a neighboring city, right?
No, that
that
happened in Meridian to start with, and then that same individual was on the run, and a few days later, he carjacked a 79-year-old woman at gunpoint and took her car. And so, you know, everybody in the area, county, the city, the neighboring cities, were looking pretty hard for him.
I was in the gang unit at the time and so off, and I knew the suspect because I had interviewed him with my ATF partner. I want to say maybe 6 to 8 months before that, and he was going back on a violation, but we interviewed him about some guns. I think he was in possession of some firearms or something like that, and gang member, documented. And was a violent dude. So I had prior knowledge of him, and so we had been looking for him that week while he was on the run. Different spots we thought he might be hanging out, but I was off that day because I was non-essential personnel too. A gang detective wasn't going to be on, and then got the page. I was on my motorcycle in Hyde Park, just about to have a beer. literally was putting it up to my lips, and then the page goes off. I'm like, man. And so I had to ride all the way back. I had to ride to Nampa and get my stuff, and drove, super fast to get over there. I was the last one on the call. So Denny was running the call, had a good plan. I got briefed on the plan when I got to the tactical operations, and then I literally jumped in the stack, I think the second house we were looking for.
Yeah. So, we're talking about this gentleman, and I use the gentleman loosely. He was an evil person.
Yeah.
You have criminals, you have people that are doing crime. This dude was a serial criminal. He was an evil person, and he was out to do harm, period. We arrest a lot of people. Some of them are in bad positions. Some of them are decent people that are in bad ways, have addictions, and they're doing crime. And that's okay. You know what I mean? And that's one type of people, and they deserve all the respect in the world. This gentleman was pure evil. And, if we didn't get him, other people in the city were going to be hurt. There's no doubt about it. And so he belonged to a gang, which I'm not going to also say the name of the gang, but that gang in the year before that had been in 6 officer-involved shootings. Members of that gang had been in 6 officer-involved shootings. County, Meridian, Boise.
All here in the valley.
All
right?
here in the valley.
They shot a Meridian officer.
Shot a Meridian officer.
Shot at an Ada County officer, and then I think officers end up shooting 3 or 4 of them before we got to this one, I think. Or
Yeah.
close to it.
And so, the Treasure Valley is a pretty safe place, a pretty mellow place, and there's a lot that goes under the radar in the criminal exit sessions or segments of the world, I guess. You can't have 400,000 people and not have crime. Well, it's probably just the nature of humanity. So this gang was very violent towards law enforcement. This person was a very violent person. And so, we got the page. I know me personally, and I'm pretty sure most of the guys on the unit knew that this was going to end up in one way. It's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight to some degree.
So when this happened, the initial shooting happened over Meridian, and everybody valley-wide was looking for this guy, because I remember when this occurred as well. I'm sure you being a team leader, you probably were kind of in the back of your mind already kind of maybe putting kind of plans together of, hey, if this happens, we might have to do this. And
yeah, honestly, you get to know your adversary. You try to get some information on them. Luckily we have knowledgeable people like Brian that have good insight on some of these subjects and know them, can provide some light. But realistically, when you get called out, it's going to end up being a hasty plan, a plan on the fly based on concepts, based on your team and your skills and the way you train and the standard operating procedures and tactics, techniques, and procedures that you employ. And, there's a lot of ways to solve problems. Most teams find a way that works for them to solve them through training and experience, and try to come up with a strong option for dealing with complex problems. And so for me, we had very capable sergeant, one of the best sergeants I worked for. Another good team leader, super knowledgeable, super experienced. He happened to be out of town when this broke bad, so we were kind of short. But the way it played out was one of our former detectives saw him when he was off duty. Basically saw the car, recognized him. The boys are out playing.
well, some good background for the podcast, huh?
There's a couple cars running code 3 past the building here.
A few cars.
Yeah, like
Must
about
be.
5. Must be a jaywalker or something. So our detective, Paparello, for very skilled investigator, very good police officer, saw him off duty, and didn't have his radio, didn't have any means of communication other than his cell phone. So he tried to follow him, and called 911, put out a description, and started to follow him. The suspect saw him and took off. So patrol units got in a brief pursuit of him, and he ended up footbailing in the neighborhood. And so he bailed out of his car, hopped the fence. Officers located his car. It was a very unique neighborhood in the sense that in this one block area there was 9 homes, and so they had him contained in the 9 homes. When he hopped the fence, there were so many units coming that way and locking him down.
They got something going right outside.
You want to take a
Pause.
short
Yeah,
pause
take
here?
a quick break.
All right. We're going to pause here for some police activity.
They're blocking the road.
All right, we had a little bit of an intermission there. Apparently there was a pursuit and a bunch of cop cars going by, and they ended up stopping just right outside the building where we're at. So we had to, take a look, say hi to a few guys we know.
Yeah, so we were just talking about how the police got on to this gentleman. Basically, they got in pursuit of him. He foot-bailed, hopped the fence. Knowing that he was armed, they didn't feel good about trying to pursue him. They set up a quick perimeter. He actually came out onto one of the streets in front of some perimeter guys, 2-man car. They challenged him at gunpoint. And he had his hands in his pockets and then just looked at him for a minute and turned and ran back in that yard. And then the patrol did a really good job. There was 4 canines on scene. Just happened to be a canine heavy day. Garden City, Ada County, Boise had a couple. So they locked them down into this nine block area. And so
Nine house.
I'm sorry, nine house 1 block area. So we felt pretty good that he was there. So
Didn't we had experience with him too? Like, didn't we go out on a SOU call out, SWAT call out, where he hid in a tree too once
Yeah.
before? Yeah, all right.
And when you say SOU, that's Special Operations
Special
Unit,
Operations
right?
Unit, yeah.
So that
So
you
we
guys are
had,
SWAT
we had
team.
had prior, we had been activated on him before, and then we had the gang stuff. So we had we were familiar with him. Small, hidden trees before. So the 9 house search, and we're talking houses that are built in the 60s. I mean, old, overgrown shrubs and
big trees.
Big trees. It was literally, 540 degree, searching, because he could be anywhere, especially how small and compact he was.
Yeah, so he's listed out at like 5'4", 120, female size. Pretty small guy. And so, like Brian said, we were concerned that he could be anywhere, And so, as we got there, so a couple things happened on the way there. As far as my, I'm kind of giving you my perspective on it, and Brian can give you a little bit of his perspective. Like I said, when I went back to my house and grabbed my gear, like I knew this was going to end bad. It was going to be, you hear a lot of people say they're going to, fight it out with the cops or whatever. But this dude, evil, don't know what kind of right mind he was in, but we knew he was going to resist. We knew he was going to make it a challenge. He always had. Like I said, he was willing to shoot people, carjack old ladies. He was very, very violent. So when I left, gave the wife an extra squeeze, a little longer hug, just because we knew it was going to be one of those deals where you may not come back, and so it was going to be a very serious deal. So on the way to the call, our team was down a bunch of people. We had a couple people out on vacation. We had a couple people out on injuries. We were a small team, part-time team. We had 18 operators, for lack of a better term, plus some supervision and some support chain. So it was a small team. We had a couple guys on vacation, a couple guys hurt, to include the sergeant. And the other team leader was gone. We actually only had 12 out of 18 active members available on scene for that call. And like Brian stated earlier, he was coming late to the call because he had to travel so long and back to get set up and going.
And so that messed things up, I think. And Denny, I think we've talked about this before, but maybe I'm wrong. I more than likely would have been point on that day because of the numbers, because of the personnel that was gone, and because of what my role was on that team, breacher. And so positions got kind of, Denny had to do what he had to do with the personnel that was there. Good personnel.
You mean assignment-wise?
Assignment-wise, yeah. Good personnel. But our buddy Kevin was up front. He's a sniper. Extremely capable. I mean, he taught me, everything I knew. He was a breacher, with me. But that more than likely wouldn't have been his position if I would have gotten there earlier.
Right. So what happens typically, right? You have an incident like this. You guys get paged, and everybody comes in at different times. And even though you may be a sniper, you might be a breacher, you might be an entry guy, whatever, a lot of times a team leader has to, just based on time and what's going on, a lot of times you just have to give an assignment to somebody that's not really their primary goal, even just because you need them in a certain location, right? Or, and everybody's cross-trained to a certain degree.
Yeah, and Kevin had spent a good amount of time on the entry team.
Yes.
Prior to, he was currently a sniper. So we had 4 snipers and 8 of our entry team. So we were down 4 or 5 entry members from what was available. So on the way in, knowing what was going on, a brief read-in from the sergeant as I'm driving to the scene, to the Tactical Operations Command location, I called my buddy who worked for the DEA because he had a drone that they had for usage related to marijuana grows and stuff, and he oversaw that part of the program. So I said, hey, do you have your drone with you, and are you available? We got this manhunt thing, and we may ask to borrow it. And so he's like, yep, just let me know. I have it in my car. I can be wherever you need me. I'll make sure my boss is good with it, and we'll rock and roll. So I called our chain of command and passed that information on, like, hey, we do have a drone available if we feel like we can use it or need it. Put a little, drones now are everyday commonplace, used in law enforcement all across the country. I mean, at my old organization where Brian works, they use them every day almost. Mm-hmm. But in 2016, our chief was very politically minded, and he had publicly said he'll never allow drones to be used by the police department. It was right on that cusp where people were worried about privacy. That's a very political job. He had a very political way of handling his position as chief of police. He always looked out for his political achievements and success for himself. So our SWAT command said, I don't even feel comfortable bringing it up with them. He's publicly said we're never going to do this. So basically that got shut down, which is fine. I mean, we have rules of engagement, different things that we have to abide by, policies. We have different hindrances. And so, one of the things about a tactical team is adapt and overcome. And so when I got there, we went forward. A lot of the team was already forward because they wanted to have tactical operators up there in case it turned bad first. So we weren't really operating as a team, but guys were forward. on perimeter positions, assistant patrol units. And we had, like I said, Meridian, Garden City, some Ada County, some Boise. There was a large group of people there.
And so just to set this up, so your suspect went into a neighborhood and your patrol officer set up a perimeter, SWAT was called, and you guys were preparing for an outdoor area search, is that?
That's correct. So what we were asked to do is go locate this guy in this neighborhood on a yard-to-yard search, which is a very dangerous proposition. Easier with drones. We did have access to dogs, which we utilized, because if you think about it, he could hide anywhere. He could hide, like Brian said, this is a very developed, older neighborhood with mature trees, mature bushes. He could hide anywhere, and they were large lots. They were half-acre to three-quarter-acre lots, so it's a pretty good amount of property for the gentleman to hide. In the back of my mind, when I was asked to come up with a hasty plan and basically solve this problem, was this is a holiday, so everybody's home. I'm worried about hostage. This gentleman getting in somebody's house, taking hostage. He's definitely capable of that. We had kids home, unknown if the parents were home because school is closed. So the potential for a hostage situation was very concerning to me and our guys on the team. And so that had to come into play with the hasty plan. We did send out some notifications over phone to have everybody lock their doors, stay in their structures, and try to do some protections for the citizens. And so basically, I was coming up with the plan. I needed, very good people. Like I said, Brian wasn't there. We had some other people there. So I looked to Kevin Holtry, who I've been on the team with for, at that time, like 14 or 15 years. Understood he was a solid operator. I could trust him, skilled gentleman, to be the point on this operation, as well as Chris Davis, who was also a senior guy and very well trusted. At that time, and I'll let Brian speak a little bit to this, but I feel like our team was very skilled, very experienced. We trained hard. We were very high on our potential for abilities, for what money and training we were afforded and allowed to do. And so I felt very confident that our guys could solve problems, and I could count on anybody at that point in time to help solve problems.
Yeah, so I got there late. I was the last one on scene for the team. I missed the search of the first yard. Got briefed at the Tactical Operations Command, and then they were coming into the second yard.
I gotta say, Brian's never been late in his life. And if you know Brian, you'll get that joke.
I do have a little bit of a reputation for being late, but that was not my intention on this one. I just had to travel a long distance. So anyway, after being interrupted.
Were you speeding?
I would never speed, no way. I had to get there quick. We knew, I told my wife was riding as well, and we were having, about to have lunch with my ATF partner.
On different bikes or the same bike?
Yeah, she rides her own bike.
Okay. And
we met her up in Hyde Park. My wife called her the work wife. She was a great partner. And they go, you better go, and we know it's going to be probably bad. It's going to be more than likely a shooting, because they understood. My partner knew. She interviewed him with me, the suspect. So I'm hustling as fast as I can to get there. Missed the first search of the house. Wasn't ideal for me. I didn't like that. But got there, and then jumped in the stack. Made it for the second house. And again, we were just high alert, looking in trees. I mean, sheds were kind of disrupted, and we're trying to relay this information. The guy could be anywhere.
So how was the stress level at this time?
It was crazy, because it's his domain. Even though there's 9 large lots, and he just got there, he owns it. We don't know.
So you feel like you're just bracing for a punch or something, huh?
Just waiting for that surprise element, trying to just trying to keep your eyes open for just those little things. Denny was doing an excellent job leading, had a medical plan in place, had routes that we were going to search, was constantly involved in the stack and where we were at in our responsibilities. And so once we came around to the house, the location where everything kind of came to a head, Denny was active, sending people forward with a plan. Kevin was up front. Again, I think it would have been a little different if I had gotten there earlier. I think I would have been point, probably with Chris Davis, and Kevin would have went to some different, sniper duties.
Yeah, originally I wanted to put up 2 sniper positions up high because they would have a good field of view, kind of work as an observation post. A sniper observer team on a church that was in the area, a 2-story church, had a pretty tall roof, could really see a lot of things. And then we actually didn't have enough people to do that. Probably would have put Kevin. I probably would have put Kevin over there, but we didn't have enough people to do that. So we did put 2 snipers up on a 2-story, trying to observe some of the area, the open field areas, and provide us some overwatch. And so, without getting into too kind of crazy tactics, we had 4 dogs. So I had a dog on the perimeter of each of the houses that we were going to go into the backyards and search. And we were using small unit tactics, if you understand what that is, and using the canine. So we had a canine with the search team, and a canine to the house to the left, and a canine to the house to the right, and a canine in reserve. That way, if the gentleman, if this knucklehead broke free, we had 3 dogs that could be easily deployed. So we started the last place he was seen. We made contact with the people at the house, said, hey, we're going to be in your backyard. And we went in the backyard and searched, which was, you talk about stress. And there was a pool, there was a deck, there was a spa, there's a shed, there's bushes. Like, we've got, 12 guys actually with the snipers. We only had 10 guys on the search group, looking in every direction, because we have to look in every direction. We have to be able to see everywhere, and guys are hunting with their eyes and trying to figure it out, and basically trying to find them. Wait for that.
The weird part is when you're starting, you already know it's a heightened situation. You know this guy's violent. You probably were figuring we're going to get into a shooting, but then everything, all the other shootings you've been involved with, start to come into play. And we had been in a shooting before as a team, small team tactics, same deal. And Kevin was there, and
Of course.
we were in this basement, and this guy was yelling, and nobody knew where he was at in this basement. And we're all looking around like where he was climbing through walls, he was doing all this crazy stuff. Well, lo and behold, at one point, we were stepping on him. He was in a hole in the ground on a piece of plywood. And we finally backed up and then started to do our search, and then boom, we got into a shooting. So the whole time we start searching this yard, I'm like, every piece of plywood on the ground is a suspect, the trees are the suspect. It was very heightened, and so we were trying to communicate to real well, search methodically and slow behind the dog.
That's exhausting.
Oh man, it was, and we had 9 big houses to do.
Yeah, and so, a gentleman I know from Direct Action Resource Center told me once that there's 3 things you can't fake: training, experience, and endurance. And our team, part-time team, we're not like the big cities. We're not, we don't have the funding, we don't have the training. We train to NTOA standards, but we trained pretty hard, and I think that's what made it ultimately a success in the long run. We were on ready to do some stuff. It was one of the interesting things that happened, tactically speaking, was the paramedics had an ambulance there. Well, we have tactical medics attached to both Ada County SWAT team and the Boise SWAT team. It's the same group of medics, and they cross-train with both groups. And because the ambulance was on scene, their supervisor said, hey, it's really busy. We need this ambulance for the rest of the town. You have medics. And so I'm going to pull the ambulance, call us back if you need it. So in the start of the plan, we had to take a right turn and figure out what we would do if we need medics. So we put the where there's 4 medics that day because one was in training. Normally we have 2 or 3 depending on the operation. So we said, hey, here's our medical plan. We are straight down Irving Street because we're on Irving Street. Well, exactly 1 mile. You could see the hospital from the intersection. If one of us gets shot or a citizen gets shot, we're going to put them in the armor and we're going to drive to the hospital. That's our baseline plan. And so we had the medics driving the armor and inside the armor. And they were basically just trailing us. And if we needed them, we would call them up. And so that was kind of our plan, which was kind of a twist to have the paramedic ambulance pull from the scene, because normally we have medics staged. And so as we moved from the first house, like Brian said, he jumped in on the second house. And the dog had a little bit of issue.
Yeah. So again, we're looking around. We just talked about how heightened everything is, and this guy's gonna pop out any moment, you know. And I'm talking to Chris Davis, and I'm like, dude, that shed looks weird. You know, he could be over there, he could be doing this, and Sniper Overwatch is saying things. And all of a sudden, we hear our good buddy, Shane Williams, super duper canine handler, and Jardo, his dog. And he goes, you motherfucker, what you mother, and he starts just cussing Jardo out. And I'm trying to stay focused on my area of responsibility, but I had to look back. I'm like, let me take a peek. And Jardo's got some piece of plastic sticking out his ass that he shit all over the place. He couldn't get it out. Shane was putting on gloves, breaking gloves, trying to delouse his dog, cussing at him the whole time. So we had this little flash of levity, you know, before everything, the whole world was gonna crack, you know. And I remember us laughing. Me and Chris were just dying because he's over there cussing Jardo out and trying to pull something out of his
Pull a piece of plastic poop out of his butt as we're trying to do this search for this evil killer who's, you know, hiding from us. And so, yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was a good little break.
Yeah, so he ended up pulling the plastic and poop out of his dog's butt because the dog was a little distracted, kept trying to squat like he needed to go, but he couldn't get it out. So we cleared the second house and yard and moved over to the third one. And so we were working in a counterclockwise fashion as far as our direction of travel. And so when we got to the third house, Brian went to the front door. I let him talk to that a little bit, but basically we were making contact with everybody. One, we want to make sure that he didn't have anybody hostage, so we're kind of reading that. Operators would go to the door, make contact, try to make a psychological read of, hey, is really everything okay? And then let them know we're going to be in their backyard, so they're not.
Right. So as you're going as a SWAT team, normally when you're hunting a suspect like that, right, you go over what are the suspect's options, right? And so that's what you're thinking. That's how you're making your decisions.
So, you know, on the tactical side, you're always looking at courses of action and potential courses of action by the suspect. You're evaluating what are the most dangerous courses of action the suspect should take. You're coming up with counters to those so that you're ahead of the curve. And so you're like, if A happens, we do B. If C happens, we do D. And so you some of that stuff you train, and so it's an automatic response from the team. Some of it you have to brief and say, hey, if these things happen, our plan is this. And so those are all things that get communicated. But that is the mindset, right? Because he's got a vote. You know, the bad guy has a vote. We get to come up with a plan. We get to come up with what we think will work. And we get to solve this problem on the way, but ultimately he's got a vote in how this turns out. And so part of that vote is predicting what he may or may not do and trying to have a response for it. So yeah, there's definitely a continuing chess piece aspect to the tactical side of things, where you're constantly going against a human thinking being, and they get a vote. And if they want to do something, if they want to turn left, they turn left.
Yeah.
And even though we might think they're going to turn right, or it makes sense to turn right, they may go left. And so we have to be prepared for those things. So we had Brian and Luis were up at the door.
Yeah. So when we bend the corner, then he gives us instructions. Hey, we're gonna stop at this gate. That was the neighboring yard. It's, if you look at it now, all that stuff we were talking about, like the heightened awareness, and he's going to be here or there, and he was right there. He was 25 feet.
Yeah, less.
I mean, he was right where what we were thinking. So, as Denny's telling us as a STIG, as our all our operators are in line, we're going forward. We're going to make contact with the house, let them know that we're going to be searching the yard. Obviously, read the room, make sure that nothing's happening inside, and then basically everything was going to start. Obviously, we search up to that point. The dog was searching, but the gate was kind of like even in my mind, it was like, all right, that's where it's going to kick off. We're going to breach that gate, and we're going to
Go
get
check
back
the next
there.
yard.
Yes.
So this is house number 3 that you,
Correct.
house and yard number 3.
So one of our buddies, operator Luis Gutierrez, goes up to the door. I start to go towards him because we don't know if this guy's on the other side of the house. We're on this side, this
Street side.
west side, yeah, street side. But there's also another side. The guy could be hiding over there. So I didn't want Luis to be uncovered while he dealt with the person at the door. So I started to go up to cover his right side, and then we would fall back and get into the stick to go into the yard. As I was going to do that, they needed the numbers to the house, and so I turned around to give that information to the tactical operation TOC. And as I turned around to do that, that's when the shots rang out, and that's where Denny will. That's where he started doing work.
As Brian was trying to relay the information to the TOC, they want to keep tabs on where we're at, and for the medics and for everything else, how far we progress, where we're at, so they can kind of understand it from the command's perspective. So Luis was knocking on the door. Brian was giving out some numbers. The point operators, Holtry and Davis, were standing by the gate. There was a set of trash cans. Your standard up here, it's BFI, automatic wheeled bins that you put your trash in at every house, and they come by and pick up at your curb. So they were standing in front of those, on the street side of those, and those are pushed up against a wooden gate that leads into the backyard.
So then you
Of
have
this
the
house.
you have the house. If you're standing on the street, looking at the house, you have a driveway like on the, is it on
Correct. So the
left side of
the driveway is on the left. If you're looking at the house, the driveway is on the left side. The gate was on the left side. There was a car. The driveway had been expanded, so there was the garage, and then there was about 6 feet of cement where the gate went across for the side yard, and then cement behind there, like they had extended their driveway.
So you had this long driveway, and at the end of the driveway is a gate leading
Correct.
into the backyard.
And so, during this, we've got to be mindful of a 360, really a 540 degree. So we had people designated looking up in trees at that time. We had people covering 360. Now, we had a perimeter. We had 4 perimeter officers in front of this house for an hour and a half, 2 hours. They actually were standing in the street by their patrol cars, probably about 35, 40 feet from where the suspect was ultimately located. And he was hiding there for the whole time. Mm-hmm. And so we had people in rear security. We had the canines. The medics were still in the armor behind us, trailing us. So Kevin and Chris were up at the gate in front of the trash cans, so on the street side of the trash cans. The gate was on the back side of the trash cans. And Chris was covering long. I was standing about 10 feet behind him. We had somebody, Kelly Montoya was off to my left. The sniper sergeant was standing next to me as rear security. We had the canine handler and a protection officer for him. And so we're all kind of static there waiting for this contact at the door to get resolved, and then we're going to push into the backyard. Chris Davis, basically, if you imagine that he's got his rifle, over the trash cans. Those trash can lids are maybe 30 inches. So he's leaned over. He's trying to look past this wooden gate, making sure that nobody's on the other side that is going to attack us. And he's, up at the front, protecting us on that spear side. Kevin was assisting him and basically reached up over the trash cans and saw which side of the gate. Was it on the left side? Was it on the right side? Did it appear to be movable? And then he pulled one of the trash cans. He started to pull one of the trash cans out of the way so that we could open the gate, send the dog in there, and make an alert. So we were searching, using the dog, sending the dog into unknown spaces, unknown threat areas first, letting the dog do his work, bringing him back, physically going in there and checking them. So when Kevin went to move the trash can, shots rang out, and he tried to step left to get off the X. So ultimately the suspect was between the trash can, the back of the trash can, and the wooden fence on the street side. So there's a little bit of a cutout. He's a super small dude. And so he fit in that space where it's curved out. So when Kevin moved the trash can, he opened up on Kevin and he started shooting Kevin. And Kevin tried to move off the X as he was trying to get his gun into play and move. But, come to find out, he had got shot in his left leg. It shattered his left leg. He got shot in his right femur, shattered his right femur. So he had no base. Kevin did. And so when he started getting shot, on the team, you're pretty tight. We have a pretty tight team back in those days. A lot of us worked out together, barbecued together, kids' birthdays together, vacation together, those kinds of things. So, you have the team aspect, which everybody on that team would sacrifice for their teammate, 100%. But then you have the friendship side, which brings another aspect to it. So Kevin let out a big grunt, and as he tried to get off the X, his injuries spun him. The guy continued to shoot, and Kevin fell face down. So he was facing east. He ended up spinning and facing west. I think that's the right direction, Jeff?
Yeah.
And fell straight down. Okay. I was about 10 feet behind him. I watched this whole thing play out. Chris Davis, who was standing to his right, was also getting engaged, and he ended up getting shot in the leg. And he was returning fire. He was trying to shoot the subject. I drove my gun up, and I remember not knowing 100% where the suspect was, but I was pretty sure he was either behind the trash can or right behind the trash can behind the fence. Based on where Chris was shooting, based on how it played out. So I ended up putting 2 rounds, trying to shoot him through the trash can low and 2 rounds high. And then I started to aggress. I started to walk in a shooting capacity. I was hustling to where Kevin was. Now, as like I said, I was only 10 feet away, so I wasn't that far away. And so we had other people doing other things, and I'll let Brian talk about what he was doing. A lot of times when you're in a shooting, you have all those central nervous system activations, and not my first shooting, not our team's first shooting. I've been shot at several times, been in shooting several times on the team side. Most of the guys on that team have been in one shooting or more. So pretty experienced that way. So when I started shooting, I got auditory exclusion, which I don't always do. I couldn't hear. My vision got a little tunneled. And basically, I basically said, I'm not letting this dude kill my friend. So, I was going to do whatever it took to make sure that didn't happen.
I was turned facing the street, telling them what the house number was. Shots go out. I turn around. I'm about 10 to 15 feet away as well. And I can see Kevin kind of bouncing off the concrete, getting shot. And then I see Chris hopping. I see that he's injured and got shot in his leg, but he's trying to shoot the suspect, and he can't really engage him because the trash can is right there, and the trash cans are kind of deflecting his rounds. But something I knew Denny was shooting from behind me to my left, but I had to go forward to get Chris out of there and to get basically in front of Kevin, so to engage. So I went forward, and I got a feeling that I might catch a round, just because obviously these guys are great shooters, him and Hilliard, the SWAT sergeant. But I also knew that I'm running towards the bullets. They're going to be whizzing by me, so I was preparing myself for that. I yelled at Chris to move. He turned away to get in front of him. When I got to the suspect, he was falling down and the gun was driving forward, and I put 2 rounds into him, and then Denny and Hilliard did a lot of shooting from that distance as well.
So O'Brien was laying some hate, getting after him, and I want to say that Chris rolling out is a standard SOP on a lot of tactical teams. Like, hey, when there's a problem, you're going to roll out. Somebody's going to fill in with your muzzle light and eyes. And so I basically aggressed, and as I got up to where Kevin was, I could see him between the 2 trash cans, the motherfucker that was shooting at us. And so I literally just put my dot on his hood, and I pressed the trigger 3 times pretty aggressively. Didn't do much of an assessment. Now, when Kevin fell and I started shooting, in full disclosure, I was shooting over the top of Kevin. You know what I mean? And I'm shooting well within a meter of Chris Davis, who's trying to back out to my right. And so, you have these tactical rules, general guidelines, and golden rules about how we're going to shoot, but ultimately, you may have to take a risk. And I'm going to shoot this guy at the risk of being a violation of those rules, because otherwise he's going to kill my partner.
You're referring to like the 1 meter rule, right?
Correct. So I'm literally shooting over the top of Kevin as he's laying on the ground. I mean, that is not something you train. That's not something you practice. But it's like I had 2 choices. I let the guy keep shooting Kevin, which Kevin he couldn't defend himself, or put rounds on him. So when I got up to Kevin, I put 3 rounds onto what I saw was his hood through my optic. I felt pretty confident that was going to resolve the issue. I threw it on safe, and I looked down to grab Kevin. At this time, I was by Kevin's feet, and so I was probably close to about, I don't know, the width of the trash can on the guy, from 10 feet. I closed the distance on him, and looked down, and I could see a grease mark, which is a bullet mark on Kevin's shirt, right above his belt line, centered to his spine, right on his belt line. It was oval. Could picture it today. And so when you shoot a target, you can see the grease mark, and it's basically where the bullet goes through, and there's a grease mark, for lack of better terms,
Yeah, so
on the bullet.
if you shoot enough, especially cardboard, like USPSA targets, it's pretty apparent on a cardboard target where the bullet goes in, the circular area, all the edges will have like a black mark on it. We call it a grease mark.
Correct. And so I saw an oblong grease mark, which you've seen on targets where they're oblong because of the angle. And I grabbed Kevin with my left hand, grabbed his belt, had my rifle on safe, and started dragging Kevin behind a car that was in the driveway. And that's when Brian, everybody's pressing the problem. Lauren Hilliard, who was the rear security, he had turned and he was right off my left shoulder, getting involved, putting rounds down. Brian was coming over shooting, replacing him. Luis had come off of Brian's shoulder and was shooting at the suspect at the same time. Josh Kincaid, one of our teammates, came over and helped me start dragging Kevin behind the car. Wanted to get to him. I wanted to get him to cover. I wanted to try to neutralize the suspect, but I also knew we had guys in a team configuration that were laying down some hate, and that that was going to help solve that problem.
Yeah, so I put down some rounds. The guy was not moving anymore. At that moment, I switched over to Chris. He was still, obviously, he had a bullet in his leg. I wanted to try and make things easier for him, strip him of his firearms and get him some medical help, and he did not want to. He wanted to hold on to his weapons. He wasn't going to give them up. He was pissed. So I decided I wasn't going to be able to do that. And then another operator came up, Megita, and he took him as I looked over, and Kevin was on the ground. Denny was next to him, and TACMED had just come up to him. Nobody was at his head. And you got to understand, me and Kevin, we're best friends. We joked around.
Oh, you and Kevin?
Yeah. I mean, every training, we joked. We made people laugh like crazy. We would sing. We were.
Which wasn't pretty, by the way.
We had fun, but we were always the bigger dudes. Respectively, we're 240, 250 each,
Because you worked out or you didn't work out?
Because we worked out. We were just big boned. And so we always had a pact that, we called ourselves the Clydesdales. All right? And we made sure we always trained with each other. When we did officer rescues or operator rescues, we paired up because I more than likely one of us was going to be there to, use the strength to get, one of us out of the way. And so it came to play when I looked over, nobody was at Kevin's head. I went over to that spot, helped Denny with some medical stuff on him, and then just kind of soothed him for a little bit until TACMED rolled up pretty heavy with the Bearcat. And I knew that it was going to come down to that strength that we trained on. We CrossFitted together. We did all that stuff. And we were each other's partners. We lifted each other all the time. We did our SWAT tests together. And so I knew at that moment that's what it was going to be. I was going to have to deadlift him along with help of the other, Denny and some other people. But I had his back, and I'm like, all right, we got to get him in the Bearcat. Bearcat's a good
4 feet high.
Yeah, I mean it's a launch to get up in there, and so when
Bearcat, for those of you who don't know, that's an armored vehicle that SWAT uses to be able to conduct rescues.
And it's quite a launch to get in there. And so we did a countdown. We picked him up. TACMED did an awesome job of assessing that he needed to get to the hospital now, and so we were going to take him code 3 to the hospital. And so we lifted him. I was behind him, and then we got up into the Bearcat. I had to do a big launch and jump in there with him. And then as he landed inside, he landed in between my legs. And then I landed on Chris Davis, who got in there before him. And all I could hear is Chris Davis go, "Ouch!" And I'm sorry, man, I got no control over this.
So I'm gonna rewind it for just a brief second where Holland finished. So when me and Josh drug Kevin behind the car, I pulled back. Tim Brady came over. Him and Josh were doing awesome medical work, I was coordinating getting the medics up and coordinating with command that we had operators down, suspect down. One of the things I didn't mention, which was kind of interesting to me, I remember it just popped in my head, was when I was initially shooting at this idiot, the canine basically ran to the gunfight. So Jardo, without being told, without direction, just natural protective instinct, ran to attack the shooter. So when I saw him come into my vision as I was shooting, and but once Kevin got transported, we'd found out that the dog got shot, and I was pretty sure I shot the dog because the dog went in there to get on the attack, and that definitely distracted him, helped keep him from shooting more bullets until we could neutralize him. But I just want to throw that out, that the dog was very, very protective and definitely helped save guys' lives. So once we got the medics there, it was kind of funny. Brian's over there dealing with Chris. I look up. Chris played football at BSU. And I look up, and he's tapping the top of his helmet like football players do when they need a sub. I need a sub, coach. And so I look up, and I'm like, why is he tapping his helmet? That's not a hand signal we have. I don't know what's going on with this. And I was like, oh, football, I got it. He needs a sub. So Brian was over there helping him. Medics showed up. Like I said, Brady, Davis, Annalise was the primary medic, doing great work. So Kevin, he got shot in the left leg, broke his bone. Got shot in the right femur, broke his femur. Got shot in the stomach, kind of up through his gut. That clipped an artery behind his stomach, and then got hit in the spine on the back. And so Annalise made the good decision. Hey, he is starting to distend. He's starting to lose color. He's bleeding significantly internally. I mean, I put a tourniquet on Kevin's left leg. Guys had put a tourniquet on his right leg. His left leg looked like somebody put a shotgun up to his bone and shot it. I mean, it was a substantial hole. I mean, you could definitely squeeze a golf ball through there if you had to.
And what was the suspect shooting?
He was shooting 9mm ball, but what had happened was when it hit that shin bone, it just shattered that whole bone, and it just
Bullet or bone fragments.
bone fragments just caused a lot of damage. So he wasn't bleeding substantially from his left side on his leg, but I was worried that the fragments might cut an artery in movement and all that kind of stuff. So we ended up, like Brian said, loading up Kevin into the Bearcat. I'll let him take it back from there.
Yeah, so to the point, that leg was so bad that we yelled at everybody not to grab it because I literally thought if somebody grabbed it, it would come off. It was that bad. So we heave-hoed him in there. So the Clydesdales came to fruition that we would need that strength and gumph to get him up in the back of the Bearcat. Got him in there, fell on Chris. Chris yelled at me again, and I apologized. And then Kevin, you could start to tell at that point was he was losing. He'll tell you he felt like he was circling the drain at that point. I'm trying to talk to him positive. TACMed is just Casey Lane and Annalise. I mean, they were amazing. They were hustling, working on him feverishly. Another point of kind of levity, even though Kevin felt like he was circling the drain. He actually credits this to staying alive, I think. Casey Lane gives me the oxygen mask and says, hey, put this on him. He needs to get the oxygen. I said, sounds good. I grab it and I put it around his face, onto his face, and he starts fighting me. And he's trying to tear it off, and we're fighting. I'm literally holding my hand on his face, and I'm like, they want you to have this on. You need to keep it on your face. And he's fighting me. I said, keep it on your face. And he finally gets it off a little bit, and he goes, "I can't breathe." The oxygen wasn't on apparently, so I was suffocating him. And he tells the story. He goes, "At that moment, I think I got some adrenaline, and I was like ready to get to the hospital. Like I wasn't circling anymore." So that's my little known trick that I have.
My bad. Turn the air on.
That's what it was. And we get to the hospital, and St. Al's ER, you could just, their eyes were, we got 2 injured operators coming in, and Annalise TACMED held it down. Like she told everybody to shut the fuck up, listen, because they were coming in just grabbing, trying to get them. Well, helpful, of course, but she took control of that, and then they whisked him away and kicked us out of the hospital. I went back to Denny. Denny was running things on scene like he always does, and yeah, that was about it. Chris got taken care of, and it just sticks with me. I know Denny. Denny's a close friend of mine, super close. That's a tough mission to be in charge of. I also carry that I more than likely would have been where Kevin was, and he would have been doing sniper stuff. So that stays with me. The guys I feel, obviously for Chris and Kevin, it's a no-brainer that you feel, just it sucks that they had to go through that. I tell you, I have a real hard time for the guys that weren't there. To know your team went through something that tragic and you weren't there for it.
That'd be rough.
Is tremendous. I mean, it's tough, and I feel for those guys because just even being a part-time team, we were close. We were our tactics were on point, and we were close, and so those are some of the things that stick with me on all of that. I give it to Denny. Denny did a great job. Our sergeant was great. Chris Rogers, one of the best sergeants we've had on SWAT, and because of that, I think there was triumph in that due to the leadership that was there for sure.
For sure. When you have good leadership, things go well.
Yeah, it was. The guys were. You have 2 guys shot, a canine that got shot. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You've done the slugfest with the evil POS, and it definitely is. You can see the gravity in the guys' faces. Yeah. And what sucks is it's still OIS, so you still have to follow OIS protocol. So, like going back to you showing up.
Yeah.
Right. Like I saw you, and you ended up being my escort. You had to take me through that OIS process, and but Kevin and Chris were at the hospital. Yeah. Team was at the hospital, minus the guys that shot, which were a fair amount of guys, four or 5 guys.
Yeah, that's a lot of shooters.
Yep. And so, these things happen very quickly. I would probably say that whole gunfight lasted 30 seconds, 25 seconds. I mean, it's a very fast gunfight, very short duration. Even though he's got a vote and he decided to do what he did and we took some lumps for it, you're never going to win. We're going to win every time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Through grit and determination, the type of men that are on tactical teams and that were on our team, you're never gonna win. And we're not gonna let you. You might get a couple licks on us, but we're not gonna let you take one of ours.
And I gotta tell you, it's interesting. Shane Williams, the canine, Jardo's canine handler, will tell you the same thing, that he was able to watch all the things that we train come to fruition right there. Shots fired, the movement forward towards the shots to create or to lay down fire, to stop the threat, to get in front of our downed officers, to complete the rescue on the officers. He he was in awe of that because you train it, you do so much of that stuff, and he said to watch it actually flow that way. And then he found out his dog was shot. He didn't even know his dog was shot at the time. He just thought his dog was running away. But he was able to watch and see that come to, all that training come together, the medical side, all that training come together, the rescue, all that. So it was kind of it's a testament to tactics and training. I know Denny talked about shooting over Kevin, shooting within that meter. And I always, every time I trained, people always talked about, principles. We follow principles, right? There's principles, two in a room, and 1 meter rules and things like that. And the only thing that break those principles is exigency, right? I mean, and thank God for the training, the shooting, the capabilities. I knew when I was going towards those bullets, I know I might take one because I'm moving towards those and they can't control that. But I also knew I had 2 very skilled shooters right there that would probably make it difficult for me to get hit, but I was preparing myself for it.
And for those who don't know what the 1 meter rule is, that's basically a rule that we go by in SWAT that, hey, you shouldn't be shooting within 1 meter or 3 feet of another officer, right?
Yeah, and so to piggyback on what B said, from gunfight to OR table was 7 minutes for Kevin. So when the gunfight started, we had him on the OR table in 7 minutes, and part of that has to do with the proximity. There's some great doctors with a lot of combat experience, prior military combat experience, work in the trauma center, and nursing staff. But Kevin almost died because of that arterial bleed in his stomach. But his doctor said if it would have been 5 more minutes, he wouldn't have survived. So being able to see guys, and when Brian's talking about this orchestration of stuff, it wasn't anything I did. I didn't tell guys what to do. Guys trained hard. They knew what to do, and it was just automatic because, when A happens, we do B. And so guys were able to do work and work towards that goal. And, luckily the proximity to the trauma center, 1 mile away, a little bit of luck on the hasty plan, and a lot of good teamwork done by the guys on the team. That's the only thing that, and the skilled doctors, that's what saved Kevin's life.
I just want to ask a couple things. As far as the shooting part of it, there's a lot of discussion. Guys always talk about, you have auditory exclusion that you talked about, tunnel vision. What about your sights? Do you guys remember seeing? You guys were running red dots, right, at the time?
You good?
Yeah, I could tell you where all 7 of my shots were. I had good visual clarity on my dot. Like I said, I had some of the things that came in, but for me, if you said, hey, draw a diagram of where your bullet holes went, I could give you a pretty close diagram where my bullet holes went.
That's good.
And so I knew where all of mine were. I saw my sights on every one. I did shoot very aggressively, very quickly, with urgency. I think, you go in the range, you practice. You're like, oh, that's a fast split. But when you have adrenaline and you have all of the chemicals telling you to go fast, like, you can go really fast.
And you said that you had some auditory exclusion, but you guys are running hearing protection at the time, right? You guys running you guys wearing like a Sordens or something like that, or some
So
with a mic.
Normally, yes. Normally we would have some hearing protection on. I was running a different in-ear combo with no hearing protection during that operation. So, I don't really know necessarily why, because I have them, and that would be standard protocol. But I plugged those in, and I was running some Ear Heroes is the brand, and they're an inner ear thing, similar to what you see like Secret Service wear on the commo side.
I remember seeing my red dot. I think for initial, I remember squeezing off 2 rounds. So I was within, within 2-3 feet of him. So because he was falling, or he was down, falling. The gun was still in his hand. The gun was driving forward towards me, and I tried to end it with that. So the auditory part, I don't think I got a lot of that. I can remember the shots going off. I can hear them going as I was moving up. I could hear them shooting from behind. And so everything was moving right, or I was hearing right, and it helped me gauge. I can hear all of Chris's rounds and him throwing them down. And the fact that he felt me and heard me, I think heard me, and he turned outboard and allowed me to take his place. It all worked out that way. Seemed good. So, I don't think I got much in regards to my sight didn't narrow. I remember seeing Kevin on the ground. I remember seeing the suspect.
Good. Peripheral vision was pretty good then.
Yeah, it felt pretty good. So I don't think I got a lot of that. But I also wasn't trying to shoot in a small sliver and over people. I mean, everybody had their own challenges, right? I was running towards bullets that I thought might get me because I had to get over there to get to Chris. So that was a little more of my, I was a little tight, coming up there.
So you were bracing yourself to take a shot. Huh?
I figured I was going to get chicken winged on that at one point just because of the proximity of everything. And I was prepping for it. It is what it is, but otherwise, I think everything else was intact pretty good.
So not too much auditory exclusion. Did things seem like they were like in real time? Like sometimes I'm sure you've probably had incidents in the past where things either speed up or slow down, anything like that?
I'd say slow down more than anything. What is very prominent is Kevin getting shot on the ground. That's what I was running to, and then panning over and seeing Chris hopping in pain. So my vision was out, but it seemed slower. So, and I think that allowed me to process that, hey, bullets are coming from your left, stand by, and it was able to, I guess, kind of prep me for that.
Yeah, for me, I did have some time distortion. Time did slow down a little bit. Originally, when Kevin got shot and I started shooting, time did slow down. It seemed like they sped up when I started dragging them, and it slowed down when we started doing medical. So it's kind of getting on again, off again a little bit for me. And
you guys were everybody on the SWAT side, everybody was running rifles, AR-15, right?
Yeah, everybody was running an AR-15. We were running a 55 grain bonded bullet, which is another, when we talk, so we, members of our team, myself, Brian, other people, Chris Davis, like we've done some lesson learned talks at Ohio Tactical Officers Association, Montana Tactical Officers Association, Northwest Gang Conference. There's been, we've debriefed this in a different way, because when you're talking to police officers, I feel more open about tactics, pros and cons, what's good, what's bad, what we did right, what we did wrong, why we went left instead of right, and all that stuff. For the general public, I don't want to disclose anything that could be maybe used against law enforcement down the road. So, it's kind of a little bit of a vanilla conversation that we've had today.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I know I remember seeing one of your debriefs, seeing some of the x-rays, seeing some of the, the crime scene stuff and the performance of bullets and things like that. So.
Yeah, so we did some extensive testing after the fact. Chris Davis and I were both working in training. We did some extensive testing with bullets, medians, different bondage, different weight, and some studies, and tried to figure out some stuff and change some equipment going forward after this event.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, everything we do, if we're not learning from it, then what's the point, right?
Amen.
Got to learn.
Yep.
All right, man. That's quite the story. I've known you guys for quite some time, and look up to you guys, as friends and as tactical guys. And that's just, I know you guys have been through a lot, so I appreciate you guys telling your story, man. I even learned some things today that I didn't know before. So
We appreciate you. Appreciate having you, and yes, been a good friend for a long time. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I appreciate your podcast role. You know, it's a little bit of work. Hopefully, guys.
Kind of redneckish a little bit. You know, I hear somebody.
Well, that
talk,
wasn't the word I was going to use, but all right, we'll call it that. Yeah. You know,
Mexican rigged is, I think,
more
a
like
word
a-
that we said earlier.
a
So.
Pakistani setup in here, but
Swap meat.
you know, guys can hear some stuff. They can learn some things from it. They definitely get exposure to some things that go on because most of the time, most people in the public don't really understand. It doesn't matter if you work in, you know, the ghetto of Phoenix or, you know, Boise, Idaho. There's things that happen. You know, gunfights are gunfights. Doesn't matter your jurisdiction.
It doesn't matter where it's at, right?
Yep. And so hopefully guys can, you know, learn from the podcasts that you do. You've had some great podcasts. So, yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll talk some more. You know, this about
Negative.
3 months.
This is a two-hitter quitter.
Yeah, this kind of led into about 3 months later. Led into another shooting that happened. Happened in with Ada County SWAT guys, and I don't know why, but this guy named Denny happened to be there too. So maybe we'll talk about that at another time.
Yeah, I think a guy named Raul was there pressing some rounds downrange, if I remember right.
All right, guys. Again, I appreciate you guys being here, and those are some good lessons learned. And I know this is can be emotional at times. And anyway, it was good to hear from you guys, and we'll see you around.
Thanks.
Thanks.